Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our final webinar before the summer break. Delighted to welcome Mark Romashuk. We were just rehearsing Mark's surname before we let you all in today. So hopefully I got that right, Mark,
Yeah,
from England Golf, who's going to take us through today's session. Those of you who've been on webinars with us before, Mark will run through some information, and then at the end, I'll ask him a few questions, and then we will open it to the floor if anybody has any questions. We will also have a follow-up email with a few things that we'll refer to today, and that'll come across to you in the morning. If you are one of the members watching this on video after the event and you'd like access to those extra bits, then please do contact me at gareth@gcma.org.uk and I will send those over to you. So, Mark, um, I will hand over to you and yeah, we will have a brief conversation at the end once you've finished.
lovely. Thanks, Gareth. I will just attempt to share my screen with my presentation on, and we'll go from there. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. Right. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, thank you for having me. Obviously, I really appreciate the invite, Gareth. Just for some context, once For Your Mind launched, Gareth popped me a message to say, it'd be really interesting to understand a bit more about how For Your Mind came about and what is available to clubs and clubs managers. So that's kind of what led to today. So in terms of what I'll cover, I thought it would be really good to give a bit of a starting point, and the thinking behind where For Your Mind came from. I think it's a bit of a story and a bit of a background that I think kind of elicits a bit of a reaction from people. So I think that's important to share. And then what our approach and aims are, and how we want to work collaboratively, with the GCMA as well as PGA and hopefully other organisations and clubs moving forward. And then what resources are actually available already, for clubs, club managers, golfers to use, as we sit here today. So just moving on to the actual starting point. So Bedfordshire County. Uh, Bedfordshire a few years ago actually lost two club captains to suicide, within a kind of 12-month period. And this obviously prompted something within Bedfordshire to say, this is a problem that we need to be able to talk about openly and to be able to take some sort of action upon. And actually, David Hawkins, who was the secretary of Bedfordshire, talks quite openly about some of the issues he's had from a mental health point of view as well. And he reached out to myself and Matt Draper, my director here at England Golf, and said, is there anything that we can do nationally that we can look at and to start to understand how we can support around mental health? Obviously, this all comes from a place of saying that England Golf aren't experts in mental health, but what we do have is hopefully a platform where we can help people around the subject matter. So we started to look at what this meant for England Golf, and our starting point was then to say, well, we all talk within the industry about how good golf is for your mental health. But actually, if you're a golf club member, or you're a GCMA member, or you're a PGA member, bigger, whoever it may be, it's all well and good saying that golf is great for your mental health. But what if it's not enough? What if you are a member who is still suffering? You're trying to play golf to kind of get through it and using that as a mental health tool, but actually it's just not enough. And ultimately, things could go wrong as they did within Bedfordshire. And what we started to look at is how many people within our membership this could potentially affect. And obviously, this is a potential number. We're not saying that this many people do suffer with poor mental health who are England Golf members or iGolf members, but actually, the number we came up with was 195,000 people that could have some sort of mental health issue in the background of varying, severity, but that's how many people that this could affect within our golfing community. So we thought it was really important to start looking at what we do from a mental health standpoint. So we started to look at the approach and how we were actually going to tackle this, and we broke that into these four areas. So firstly, we started to think about golfers. Have golfers got the opportunity to gain information around mental health? Do they understand where they can go? And the answer we kind of came up with from a golf perspective was no. There was nowhere within our industry that said, go to this page on Mind. It will tell you more about the causes of mental health. There was nothing around mental health first aiders certainly out there on the internet to say, this is where you can learn more from a golf perspective about being a mental health first aider. I know the GCMA have done some great work around this, but for club golfers, we just didn't have that. So that's where we came from a golfer perspective. When it comes to clubs, including managers, we wanted to make sure that if they landed on our page, they would be directed to the GCMA website for the support that they could gain there. And we wanted to start bringing the kind of network we've got within the golf industry together from that perspective. But we also wanted to then challenge clubs to say, what are you doing for your members around their mental health? Are you bringing that to the fore? Is it something your members feel comfortable about talking about to your network? And also giving them that information, because ultimately, again, for clubs, we didn't feel there was anywhere that they could gain that information and signpost to Mind mental health first aid. The same with clubs, with golfers, sorry. We then started to look at the wider partnerships and how they would work. So, For Your Mind was developed with Mind and with Mental Health First Aid England, because, as I mentioned earlier, England Golf aren't the experts in this. England Golf have just got the opportunity to push this out to as many people as we possibly can. So we made sure that those wider partnerships were in place and we were able to work with those people who are the experts. And then finally, looking at initiatives, and I'll touch on some of these later on. There's some really good stuff going on already. But again, we'd like to highlight these to allow more clubs, more people to tap into what the initiatives are and what's happening out in the industry. So the aims, obviously within those four areas, we have an aim for each part, and I've already mentioned the information. We feel that our website can be that source of information and signposting to the right places for people to find out more about mental health. We want to work with as many clubs as we possibly can to have a mental health first aider within their club, because we feel that that role gives people an opportunity at their club to feel comfortable to talk to someone and to get signposted to the right help through a mental health first aider. And I'll touch on in a while what that's actually looked like from our pilot in Bedfordshire. We then have a golfer and a club toolkit. These are resources that we've developed, again, alongside Mind and Mental Health First Aid England, that allows golfers and clubs to either have information or take action around mental health and hopefully having a positive impact on people's mental health moving forward. So obviously I've mentioned resources that are available, and just to run through a few things that are already available and out there. Club support wise, we have a club toolkit which has posters, materials. So you'll see on the presentation that the design I've got there, we've got posters that you can use around mental health to start spreading the word, if you like, about what is happening at your club and what can be achieved around mental health. And they look similar to what I've got on the slides. We've got a specific area on our website, as I've mentioned, around the information and the biggest signs of poor mental health. I think we wanted to put that front and center so that if you didn't go anywhere else, if you looked on the England Golf website, you could at least have an idea of what those signs of poor mental health are, because they come out in people in different ways. So ultimately, if we can give people opportunity to recognize that, that's really important. We've then signposted the GCMA, PJ, and bigger. We were always very conscious that we wanted this to be a collaborative approach across the industry governing bodies. So we've made sure that we've referenced there, and continue to work with the GCMA on how this looks and how we push it out to clubs. So then when it came to mental health first aider, we worked with Mental Health First Aid England to develop a role descriptor that was specific for golf clubs. And we believe that this is the first one that's been done in any sporting industry. We've made it essentially something that we feel that golfers can actually understand, rather than it being a lot wider in terms of that role descriptor. We've got information on the website about what being a mental health first aider is, and there's a few videos on there. And then a real positive is we have used the iGolf funding this year, which goes back into counties for development work. And we've said that mental health can be part of that. And I'll show in a minute which counties have applied for mental health funding. And we've actually managed to raise £25,000 worth of funding, which is going directly into supporting clubs to do something around mental health, be that having a mental health first aider, or be that having more information around mental health available through courses at clubs. And then finally, Mind. Again, we've got that information and that signpost to Mind on our website. But what we've also worked on with them, and this was sent out to clubs last week, and we're going to attach it to the follow-up that Gareth sends. We've actually got a mental health scorecard. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later on in this presentation, because it's kind of our central piece when it comes to how we get this information out and into the hands of as many people as we possibly can. So in terms of county funding, these are the counties that currently have funding available in some way for mental health. So obviously this presentation can go out, and the list is there. So if any club managers would like to reach out to their counties to understand a bit more about what that looks like, you're more than welcome to reach out to them. So then just trying to start to give some examples of what these club resources look like. So as I say, all these are available. And again, we'll send out the toolkit via Gareth, so that this can be put in the hands of every golf club manager that watches this. Again, this is just to raise awareness, really. It's to make sure that people start to understand some of the connotations around mental health and how they can start, as it says there, driving that conversation. Just trying to start prompting people to think about how mental health looks within their four ball, within their family, within their friends. And then they've all got QR codes on as well that then link back to our website for more information should people want it. So hopefully it's just that conversation starter within a club to try and get people to start opening up and thinking in a different way. So I mentioned earlier, I referenced it, the mental health scorecard. So we've worked with Mind because, as I've mentioned before, they are the experts in mental health, in terms of the way we word this and the way we make sure that it's a professional document that makes sense for people working within mental health. It also runs along the lines of the Spot Support signpost from Mind, which effectively is their framework of how you would go about supporting someone who maybe has poor mental health. And very simply, as you can see, we've got 18 shots, 18 holes, if you like, towards what potentially poor mental health may look like in someone. So you don't need to kind of be a rocket scientist to understand some of these things. An example, drinking more alcohol, increasing in smoking, just some of the behaviors that you may witness in someone that might be suffering from poor mental health. Really interestingly, I actually shared this with some of my friends recently in a WhatsApp group where we all chat and we've all got them. And one of my friends actually reached out to me after sharing this to say, I really like what you've done with it, but what I've actually realized from it is that I might be suffering from poor mental health myself. And for me, that was a really not good point, obviously, because we've now talked about what that looks like for him. But ultimately, for me, it showed that it did its job. There was an opportunity there to say, when I look at this, that is me. I can see myself in those behaviors, which is really good. So it's aimed at golfers, but as I say, we will put it in the hands of GCMA members to make sure that it hopefully cascades to their members, to support in recognizing signs that they may have missed about themselves, support in recognizing signs in others, and then leading into being able to signpost to the England Golf website, or if your club already has a mental health first aider, being able to signpost to the mental health first aider who will be able to then provide that initial support for someone who may be suffering with poor mental health. And then as I said earlier, I just wanted to start to share some of the initiatives that have been going on already. So Bedfordshire County were our pilot around mental health first aiders, and they have 16 mental health first aiders in the county, who now meet on a quarterly basis to kind of share their progress and an understanding. And not only do they support themselves, but they're able to reflect on what they have done and how they've helped people. At the last count, I think they'd had about 52 conversations between them about mental health. And that could be someone just asking the question of what a mental health first aider is, what should I do in this situation and where can I go to get a signpost, to the extreme of having a sit down conversation with someone who has genuinely reached out and is genuinely in crisis, to be able to signpost them to the right support and ultimately potentially could save their life. So there has genuinely been a spectrum, if you like, in Bedfordshire from what we've seen of people who are reaching out for support. The Bro Project is a bit of a different one that we highlighted actually for Mental Health Week, whereby they have a few golf clubs in the southwest that they will go and visit, and they will take people along just to hit range balls. They could have up to 40 people sometimes turn up, but what they do is they then have a mental health first aider there, so that if people want to start talking about their mental health, they have an opportunity through golf, be they a club member or someone who's never picked up a club before. They have this opportunity through golf to be able to talk about their mental health if they want to. But what we've seen from this and what the Bro Project has started to see is that's actually growing golfers in the Southwest. People are picking up the sticks for the first time, talking about their mental health, but then continuing to actually say, yeah, I'm starting to consider myself a golfer. So our support officer down in the Southwest is now looking to support those clubs that the Bro Project go to look at their pathways, look at how inclusive they are, support with having a mental health first aider, to give those clubs the best opportunity to invite those people into their communities. So it just shows that by working on mental health in this instance, there's opportunity for your club to grow and to, look really good from a community perspective as well. So that's been a really kind of eye-opening project that we're working on at the moment. Another one is Help for Heroes. This is a bit more of a national kind of push at the moment. And what we're trying to do with Help for Heroes is understand from them that what veterans would need or what extra support veterans may need from a mental health perspective if we were to introduce them to clubs. So using Help for Heroes contacts and the participants that they've got, we're looking to run a nationwide webinar to say, if you'd like to invite veterans to your venue, this is what you could do as a golf club. It's completely up to clubs whether they take that on, but hopefully it's a piece of work where we can support veterans and we can support people that maybe do, again, want to talk about potentially their mental health, and they can use golf as that outlet. We're also working with Mind as a bit of a second phase, very similar to Help for Heroes, but trying to understand from Mind where we can tap into participation in groups and understand where we can then help clubs to look at those groups and say, okay, we've got 40 people over here that are with Mind, that are local, and we would like to invite them to our club to start them, using golf again as part of their mental health journey, but potentially to become a participant, a green fee player, whatever that looks like. And then finally, the kind of headline, if you like, for this project and where we'd like to get to. We've currently got 40 mental health first aiders in clubs. We've started a few months ago to collect this data. We know that through the county funding, we've got opportunity for another 135 spaces, if you like, that are going to be available. And again, we'll just be promoting that it's great practice for a club to have a mental health first aider as we move forward. So we'll continue to push this and, you know, talk to clubs about why it's a real benefit to have a mental health first aider for your club, and your golfers from a retention perspective as well. So those are the initiatives that are currently ongoing, and hopefully kind of spark some ideas from people, and people may want to look at these things as we move forward. And then I'd just like to kind of finish up with a bit of a message, and this is a genuine quote. When we started talking about For Your Mind and what this looks like, we sat down and started saying, what does success look like this within this project? And this is where we kind of nailed to the mast and said, if this saves one life, it's worth all the hard work. And I still genuinely believe that, and feel that that is something we can take from this, is that if we can all work together as an industry and it does genuinely save one person because we've made someone aware, or they've used a mental health first aider, or they've used golf to work on their own mental health, then it's absolutely worth everything that we're trying to achieve. I'll open it up for questions though.
Great. Well, firstly, thanks for that, Mark. You've gone into some good detail for us there for a scheme that a lot of us will have seen at launch, but obviously you've been able to dig in a little further. So thanks for that. There's just a couple of points to pick up for those who are live with us now and those who are listening on a recording. Just to make you all aware, Bigger has a comprehensive mental health page on their website. I will include it in the follow-up email, or the email that I'll send to anyone that requests it from the recording. And interestingly, Bigger actually do offer the opportunity for their members to receive free mental health first aid training themselves. So again, if that's something within your club that you think would be beneficial, the fact that your Bigger member greenkeepers would be able to access that training free of charge if it interested you, that's really worth knowing. So just a few questions from me, first of all, Mark. So firstly, you mentioned 195,000 people at the start in golf clubs that could be affected by poor mental health. So where does that number come from? Because I understand why you needed a number to start
Yeah.
working, but where's it come from?
So essentially, that's from, if you look at Mind and their website, they look at a certain percentage of the nation
Right.
could be affected by having poor mental health. And that's, as I mentioned, it's anywhere on the spectrum. So you could be having, you know, depression, and you could be struggling with your mental health at the kind of,
Mhm.
the bottom end, if you like, up to being having a psychotic episode, as an
Sure.
example. So all we did is said, Mind say it is this percent. So that is the percent of our members that could be suffering from poor mental health, because ultimately we are all part of a national community. So yeah, that's where it came from.
So I've done the same. You've done it. We as an association have regional mental health first aiders in every region now.
Yeah.
Some have more than one, which is fantastic, but we want to increase that. But I was going to ask you, do you need to be an expert in mental health to become a mental health first aider? But do you know what's occurred to me during this
Mm,
recording is that we hear it a lot, but
mm,
I wonder how many people actually know what it entails. So so if someone as a result of listening to this today or watching this decides that they want to get some of their staff or members in the club to sign up to become a mental health first aider, what does it entail? Because I'm sure that would be the first thing any of our managers would be asked if they were trying to get somebody to go on it.
Yeah. So, first, to answer your question around do you need to be an expert? Absolutely not. I think the main thing to be a mental health first aider is you need to be able to listen to people. That's the main thing. The course teaches you very much how to signpost to the experts, and that's what we always come back to with the everything that we do. We are not the experts, so no, you don't need to be. Um, in terms of what it entails. It is a 2-day course, or it is split into four morning or afternoon parts. And it's essentially giving you a framework as to how you would run these conversations with people to create a safe space and to be able to say to them, I've been trained, I understand where you're coming from, I'm looking at you with no judgment whatsoever. Whatever you tell me is confidential. And ultimately I have the tools to be able to signpost you from an app that Mental Health First Aid England provide to the right services within your local area. What I would say about it as well, having done it, and I know obviously you've done it as well, Gareth, is when you come to use it, it genuinely provides you the confidence to be able to use it. And once you are a mental health first aider, people do tend to just open up. And as we mentioned with Bedfordshire, as soon as someone says they're a mental health first aider, people want to know a little bit more, but then people also gain that confidence to be able to say, yeah, I'm looking at myself, I'm reflecting on how I am, and I want to talk to someone. So it genuinely becomes a bit of a culture shift. And we
Yeah.
at England Golf, as staff, we've got 5 mental health first aiders, and it it allows people to open up. It genuinely does. So, yeah, in terms of time, it is a 2-day course, or like I say, four half days. It is. You've got to be able to put the time in. But I would wholeheartedly say it's worth it. So,
Great. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, because
yeah,
some people are not comfortable sitting
yeah,
that type of course, but they're certainly interested in it.
yeah,
What else might be available out there if somebody didn't want to necessarily do the mental health first aid
yeah,
training, but they still want to educate golfers and still want to sort of harness good practice in this
yeah.
area.
I would say that the first thing to do is take a look on our website and start to kind of use those signposts out to Mind Mental Health First Aider, because even if you're not going to be a mental health first aider, there's a lot on there that explains a bit about mental health. But also, if you were to talk to your local Mind as an example, or there's a lot of different businesses locally that would be able to do a few hours kind of seminar at your club if you really wanted to, that would bring in an expert and they'd be able to do a bit of teaching around mental health. And I know that a few of the counties that have taken on some of the funding, their first port of call actually is to do a bit of an awareness piece around mental health using these kind of smaller seminars to then say, okay, if you're still interested, we're now running mental health first aider. So if you wanted to raise awareness, there's lots of different ways of doing it. Like I say, either using our toolkit or website, but then also those kind of local minds in particular are very good at being able to run those smaller sessions for you as well.
Great. And once we've got the certificate, we've done the training, we're now a mental health first aider. What sort of ongoing support is there for people? Because
Yeah.
speaking from experience myself, you can feel rather exposed. I think sometimes is that, you've got the certificate, so now somebody has the confidence to come to you. But, if there's something that you're not quite sure about, what support
Mm.
is out there at the moment?
Yeah, so there's a couple of I think there's a golf specific area here, but then there's a national one as well, and I'll start with the national one. So Mental Health First Aid England have actually got an associate membership scheme whereby when you go through for free, you join the associate scheme and you do get some support. I would say that it could be more, but it's there, it's available.
Sure. Yeah.
From a more golf specific side of things, those mental health first aiders that we've run the pilot with in Bedfordshire, they've got a WhatsApp group. As I mentioned, they meet every quarter and they just sit and they talk about their experiences and they kind of offload between each other.
Mm, mm.
And I've seen how powerful that can be for them because they do genuinely support each other when they need it. Um, we're also looking kind of nationally at how we can replicate that as well for mental health first aiders in clubs and be able to say, maybe not a WhatsApp group, but how can we have this community of mental health first aiders that can support each other? So if you go through a difficult experience, where do you go from an England golf perspective because you're at a golf club? So it is something we're working on in the background. As I say, Mental Health First Aid England at the moment have got the associate membership anyway, but we are very conscious that we want to look after people who are going to be mental health first aiders within a golf club. So it is something we're working on in the background.
Great. Well, last question from me. What's next for the project? Because you speak very passionately about it. I know you've worked so hard to get it to this point. What's next?
So, as I mentioned, I think the initiatives with Help for Heroes as they move forward, and then with Mind as well, about how we do a bit more around community outreach are really important. Obviously, supporting things like the Bro Project as well, and where they pop up, and because they won't be the only ones, so there'll be others. So that support there. As I mentioned, creating this community of mental health first aiders is another kind of port of call for us. We're also having discussions in the background with some kind of independent businesses that can bring other things in for us to hopefully offer some solutions. So there's lots going on in the background that hopefully people will see that will work in the future. But I would also say as well, with the toolkit that we've got and with the mental health scorecard, we're really interested to see how clubs and managers use it. So please, with our network that's on the road, if you've used anything that we've produced, feedback to us. Let us understand how it's worked, if it's worked, and if there's anything else that you need, because we can then look at resourcing what we get feedback on. This is going to be an ever kind of evolution of what we do as we learn more and more about this journey. So please feedback to us. Let us know, and we'll work with clubs where we can to implement these things.
Great. Well, thanks for answering my questions, Mark. If anybody still in the chat room would like to ask any questions, please unmute yourself and do so now, or forever hold your peace. That's what they say, isn't it? Yeah. No, we're all quiet. Well, in that case, Mark, thank you very much for making the time to be with us today and to speak so passionately and in depth about a project that you've worked so hard on.
No
So
problem.
thank you very much for that. As I say, for those who are listening to this live, there'll be an email with you in the morning. And if you are watching this on a recording and would like the post-webinar follow-up materials, please email me, gareth@gcma.org.uk, and I'll be more than happy to share those with you. But for now, thanks very much, Mark, and
Thank
thanks to
you.
everyone for attending.